Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Richard Diaz. I am the Midwest Regional Field Organizer with BlueGreen Alliance. Today, we are going to talk with labor leaders and environmental leaders within the private sector to talk about some of the benefits of the American Jobs Plan. BlueGreen Alliance has called on President Biden and leaders in Congress to advance a comprehensive pro-worker, pro-climate package and invest in our future, and goes further than the reported bipartisan compromise. The bottom line is that a bipartisan bill cannot be the end of our investments in America's future. It must simply be a step along the way. To truly build back better, we need investments to revitalize and retool America's manufacturing sector to create good paying union jobs and build back better in deindustrialized communities and communities of color. Significantly increase funding for urgent needs to repair and modernize our domestic infrastructure that goes beyond the funding of the bipartisan bill. Support for the care economy and social and human infrastructure needs for the country. In a recent BlueGreen Alliance survey, 90% of voters in Wisconsin and 5 other key states said repairing and modernizing the nation's physical infrastructure and rebuilding and retooling American manufacturing and modernizing our factories to build products and the technology in the United States is very or fairly important to them. Wisconsinites expect their members of Congress and President Biden to deliver and support further investments. It's time to get the job done. Our first speaker of the panel this morning is going to be Pam Fent, president of the Milwaukee Area Labor Council, AFL-CIO, and has worked for the Great Lakes Region Organizing Committee of Laborers International Union of North America since 2010. Pam?
Good morning, everyone. Very happy to be here today representing the Milwaukee Area Labor Council, and I'm proud member of Laborers Local 113 here in the Milwaukee area. For laborers, when we think about what the infrastructure investment means to us, first and foremost, it's finally a chance to address our appalling grades in infrastructure that we as a experience in our state and across the country. I think we're about a C- in Wisconsin, and anybody who's out and about driving in Wisconsin sees the issue with the potholes, terrible condition of our roads, worries about bridge safety. That type of infrastructure needs investment for the safety and well-being of all of the community. And importantly, from a labor perspective, it creates many good paying jobs for local residents. We participate in a program that helps disadvantaged people and people who haven't had exposure to construction careers to go through a preliminary introductory training that gives them a much better shot at being hired for construction careers. We've had a really great experience connecting new people into construction careers for bridge and highway work through this program with our partner WRTP Big Step in Milwaukee. So first and foremost for the Jobs Act, I would say it's the roads and bridges portion of the bill. Second up, and equally as important, is the attention to the water infrastructure. It's crazy in 2021 that we have issues where families in cities and rural areas across the country don't have the ability to feel confident in the safety of their drinking water. And so working on lead lateral removal is another key piece of this bill, and it will help create the possibility, again, of new entrants into construction careers. So the job growth aspect is very important to us. In Milwaukee, we're looking at a tree planting endeavor. Governor Evers has set a goal of planting 75 million trees to help decrease the urban island heat effect that goes on in our cities and to help mitigate the effects of climate change. Again, labor's jurisdiction includes landscaping. This could be an excellent way to introduce people into the care and science of tree management, and to, again, we can create good jobs, good green jobs, and help mitigate climate change at the same time. So that's some of the reasons that the laborers are really excited about the infrastructure proposals.
Thanks, Pam. Next up, I'd like to introduce Brian Graff. Brian is the General Manager for Solar Forma. Also, Lauren Becker, Business Development Coordinator for Solar Forma.
Morning. There's only going to be one of us on camera this morning, but I'll echo much what Pam offered up. We started this company in 2019. We manufacture a portfolio of inspired design solar products that fit into human spaces in a unique way, and also provide a very meaningful level of solar generation on top of it. So it allows these products to be put into places where other solar arrays and other solar products might not fit or might not be allowed just because of the integration factors. We leveraged essentially an operation that we already had in place that was fabricating and welding and machining and technology integration to a large degree, and managed to create a company that we're now on the verge of launching our products, and it's been met with great fanfare and great promise. So we're very excited. One of the negatives that I hear oftentimes associated with the Great American Build or the transition to a different workforce focus is that you're going to displace so many workers that are employed in fossil fuel. When we look at what goes on in the Chippewa Valley, in Eau Claire, Chippewa Falls, and the surrounding communities that we're a part of, these skill sets, fabricating, welding, machining, technology integration, these are things that are inherent in our workforce, and they're things that we can simply, I guess for lack of a better term, repurpose in a relatively minor way and still keep these people engaged, but oftentimes in higher level, more interesting work. It's just not that big of a shift to move a guy from welding a pipeline to building our trees and the superstructures that are involved in that, nor is it a big shift to take a journeyman electrician who is accustomed to wiring commercial buildings and all the various venues that obviously have to use electricity, and put them in a role of overseeing the installment of our trees and our different products overall. So I actually think this is a very positive thing, and it is a workforce build. I was watching the news this morning, and I saw a couple of ads for the Great American Build, and the idea of inspire, hire, build is one that we're trying to embrace. We see this as a tremendous opportunity. We see it one where there's going to be a lot of great paying jobs built. I think it restores once again and brings the focus back to the honor of work, people working with their hands and actually getting things done. We see our opportunity as having truly a global market scope. From the time that we founded it, we decided that we were going to focus on making sure that we got our products to as many corners of the world as we can. Because again, if we don't address climate change with these new technologies on a global basis and try to do it only on a local basis, we're really not going to accomplish anything. But underlying it all too is just the market opportunity. Things are lined up. We've got government policy lined up behind it. We have the financial community, which is beginning to divest itself of fossil fuel holdings. They also know how to properly evaluate some of these products better. We have the emergence of the technology itself. Solar has proven itself. Storage technologies continue to advance. So it makes these technologies viable in a plethora of circumstances where otherwise maybe they had to struggle. But these things are all kind of coming together, and we see public opinion and the cognition around climate change and the need to do something also obviously driving this forward. So we think this is a tremendous opportunity. We share your call to the members of our congressional caucus to support these plans and to make this work. In the end, this is not a net loss of workers. This is the build. These are the technologies of the future. And it also gives us an opportunity to, again, expand onto the global stage with what we produce here in Wisconsin. So our company focus, our company strategies, our opinions, our energies are flowing into exactly these kinds of sentiments in order to build back and build back better.
Thanks for that, Brian. Next, I'll introduce Phil Swanhorst. Phil Swanhorst is the president of the Greater West Central Wisconsin Area Labor Council. Phil?
Thank you for that introduction. And let me just tell a little bit more about myself. I've been involved with labor for many, many years. I am a retired city bus driver here for the city of Eau Claire. I was a member of my ATU Amalgamated Transit Union for 15 years. The last 8 years before I retired as their local president. And I'm an immense supporter of public transit. And I would like to build on what Pam said, the very important need of roads and infrastructure. The important need actually is we need to get people where they gotta go. And everyone can't get to where they gotta go in a car. Sometimes they'll need a bus because of some disability or some other circumstance that can't afford a car. And maybe a bus isn't the choice. Maybe they need a train, maybe they need a ferry. But we need to look at alternative methods other than just roads. And the alternative methods will also create labor jobs, to create railways, to create infrastructure, for transfer centers for buses, for bus lanes on our roadways and so forth. So I'm very excited that we have a current administration in Washington, D.C. called the Biden administration, who is extremely proud of calling himself Amtrak Joe. You can't get more of a transit president than that. And he just gave a speech this week, just south of Eau Claire here in La Crosse, in person, introduced by an ATU sister of mine from local 519 in La Crosse. And he had his hand on the window of a bus. I mean, we need to promote other modes of transportation other than the traditional, let's jump in the car to get where we gotta go. And that's what we can do. And I agree with Brian as well too, that solar is got to be a part of how we get around in our communities. We can't rely on fossil fuels for the rest of, from now till the end of time. We need to look to alternative methods of propelling or getting around our communities. And solar energy can produce electric buses, electric trains, and these are the type of alternative methods of energy we need to start addressing. And again, like Brian said, they create labor jobs. And of course, labor is the backbone of our economy, and we can never overemphasize the importance of the creation of labor jobs. And for our distractors to say, well, you're taking away this pipeline, or you're taking away these jobs, or you're taking away, no, for every job that seems to be taken away, we are producing more than twice as many other good family paying jobs by redirecting the emphasis into good, clean energy type jobs, good, clean transportation type of jobs. So we are not negative jobs whatsoever. And the beauty of everything that we are proposing in this jobs market, as our president says, we're building from the bottom up and from the middle out, is we will do it by promoting the #1 needed element we have in our world today, and that's a cleaner environment. If we don't address our climate as the #1 issue that needs to be looked at and achieve a goal that we can all agree is attainable, maybe not tomorrow or next year or next decade, but it has to be attainable if we want our children and our grandchildren to realize what we've had before us. And without a good, clean environment, which solar energy can provide us, which public transportation can provide us, which good roads and good infrastructure can provide us, we're not going to provide that future for future generations. So I think the future is extremely rosy, extremely bright, because we can build back better by creating the right type of jobs for the right type of our future to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Phil, for those very strong, bold statements. I'd like to introduce our last speaker, Mr. Ken Blaskey, organizer with IBEW Local 494, which proudly represents workers in Milwaukee, Waukesha, Washington, Ozaukee, Fond du Lac, and Sheboygan counties. Ken?
Good morning, everyone. As we talk, this infrastructure bill does a lot to create jobs in a way of roads, bridges, and rail. And I believe that this just proves President Biden's intent to build back better is more than just lip service. All of this spending is done with job creation in mind. And none of this is wasteful money. All this money that is being spent on infrastructure, it's not wasteful if it creates good family sustaining jobs. But more jobs can be had. And Mr. Diaz is right about this can't be the end of this. This needs to be step one. And it is a big step. The infrastructure bill can solve two issues at the same time, cleaning up our climate and creating good jobs. More than half the buildings in the city of Milwaukee were built before 1980. And a lot can be done to make these buildings more energy efficient with insulation and heating and cooling upgrades. And Pam Fink can attest to this, that the laborers went after this work at least a decade ago, but the incentives were not in place. And it never really gained traction about creating these jobs. We have a chance now to make sure that that happens. And we can do a lot more than just what Focus and Energy already does. We can upgrade the lighting in these buildings in our urban areas, the buildings of our businesses with LED lighting, which is going to save a lot of energy, lower the costs that our businesses have. And also all of this job with insulation and upgrading our heating and cooling in these buildings is going to create jobs for our carpenters, laborers, electricians, the HVAC tinners and steam fitters, while decreasing energy usage and pollution at the same time. Now, President Biden also wants to put 500,000 electrical vehicle charging stations, public access charging stations in this country. And we're really far behind right now. As of right now, we've got about 100,000 in this country, and a third of those are only in the state of California. Now, China, the big polluter that they are, has 800,000 already. So we've got work to do. And this work is going to be done by our electricians, and this is going to create great jobs for all of them. Now, more than 50% of the households in the city of Milwaukee rent. So it's not going to be possible without these public access charging stations for them to buy an electric vehicle and to be able to use that and be able to charge it and get to where they want to get. So the infrastructure has to come first. If we want to really decrease the amount of pollution in our urban areas, we need to increase the amount of electric vehicles that we have in these areas. And the best way to do that is to create the infrastructure needed. So again, all of this work, between making our buildings more energy efficient, by making our vehicles less polluting, and being able to have these vehicles owned by our city of Milwaukee, our apartment and condo dwellers, that infrastructure needs to come. And I think Biden so far is very serious about this. And cleaning all of this, all these jobs will serve two purposes. One is cleaning up our environment, building a safe climate for generations to come. And number two is strengthening the middle class by creating family-sustaining union jobs that can be done by our city of Milwaukee residents. I believe that these projects that are in the city of Milwaukee should be done by city of Milwaukee residents, and that's going to help all of our economy.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you. And I'd like to mention that if anyone on the call has any questions for our panelists or for myself, feel free to include them in the chat. We've just heard from some very strong labor leaders and a leader within the private sector for solar technology. So let's give it a few minutes to see if anyone has any questions, and we will conclude our press conference. Okay, looks like we don't have any questions. I'd like to thank all of our panelists for joining us here today, for being the strong, brave, and bold leaders that they are. We need to encourage our members of Congress and President Biden to, in order to build back better, we have to go bold, we have to go big. So